So up next, we have Arthur Welsh. Arthur Welsh just released, I guess it was, 25 days ago, an album titled Truth. Sure, Arthur, welcome to the show. Oh, Arthur's going to be with us in just 1 second. Arthur has released an album called Truth. So, Arthur, as soon as we see your face, maybe this is your face. You have a very interesting face.
I think
there
it is.
No, that's a more human face. I thought I was talking to a computer program named Arthur for a second there. Arthur, welcome.
Hello. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Good.
Hello. Welcome
Critical
to...
for conversation to be able to hear one another.
Yes. I'm currently in Washington, D.C., around there, and I was unable to make it back to the state of Alaska, so you got me here.
So you are an Alaskan that's trapped in D.C. right now?
I am, yes.
That's all right, though, because they're pretty similar places, really, D.C. and Alaska.
Yeah, I mean, not really, but, you know,
Right.
people are still good.
Can you hear me? Is the sarcasm coming through too, or is that lost in the process?
No, I'm just working with this audio right now. It's crazy.
Okay. What are you working on? Not only in terms of the audio, but also in terms of music. Now that you've just put out your album Truth, which we're going to talk about in a second, what's the next project for you?
I'm working on refining my skills, basically. I have about 15 singles. I'm mixing, mastering, getting like friends from school to play on. So I'm getting this whole year laid out.
Skills as in bow staff skills or hairstyling skills or piano skills, I'm guessing. What all are you working on?
Yeah, piano skills
as far as,
mainly.
Instruments and production techniques.
Yeah, mainly like learning how to play piano still, because I'm still a beginner in many senses. This software I'm using is very involved, so a lot of the time I have to go on YouTube, university, and teach myself. But I think I've come pretty far in a couple of years, and the album that I produced, Truth, is made on this software.
Is the software Ableton? Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Ableton is actually something I've spent thousands of hours in. I've also produced an album in Ableton, and I spent a long time writing a soundscape for a book in Ableton. And I don't think I know the program like you do. So you might be a native to that platform. Tell us a little bit about what makes Ableton a unique music production platform.
I sort of see it as a palette for creativity. I don't have any restrictions as, say, if you were working with a band, you would be relying on the recording engineer. But basically, I have complete flexibility on how to use the software. That can be like mixing with specific like tools like equalization, compression, and then I also have a whole list of instruments, and I can make my own sounds. So the stuff that we just listened to about the last hour, I can do sort of on here. It's not the same stuff, but it's the same like cutting edge technology.
Yeah. I use something called an Ableton Push, which is not only a controller for the specifics of the programs, as you know, but it also can be used as an instrument. It's got a grid of 64 buttons on it. Do you have one with you that you could hold up to the screen by any chance?
I don't have one. That's
no
on
worries.
The wish
If
list.
you're sitting at home, search Ableton Push and see what I'm guessing that Arthur has been using at least a little bit of. The program itself is extremely flexible, like he was telling you. It is truly a platform for creativity. You know, it's based a lot in loops or in cycles, and a lot of classical music and a lot of jazz is as well. Mozart wrote a very famous set of 12 variations on that theme we all know, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Stars, maybe how you know it. And then, of course, jazz itself is started out anyway as a way of taking a repeated chord structure and making it interesting as it continued to evolve over time. And that's, I think, the basis of Ableton. Would you agree with that, or do you see it a different way?
I think Ableton it can be used like that, and that's one facet of it. Definitely my album is based around those ideologies, but I also know that you can work off grid. You don't have to limit yourself to what you think the software is like made for. So I like pushing myself, trying new things when I sit down at the computer. I don't look at anything here as a restriction. I just try to go in and approach it my own way.
That's fantastic. Well, since your album used the same thing that I picked up on about Ableton of these loops that repeat and are altered and added to and subtracted from as you go, let's hear just one track from your album, and you pick your favorite, and then we'll talk about why it was your favorite afterwards.
Okay, this is the title track. It's called Truth. Let's see if this will work.
It will. Have faith. This is the moment of truth, I think, right? We're live. Are we also hearing the track Truth right now? No. We're not. Okay. Arthur, where can audiences find truth? And I mean that in every sense of the word. Where can they find? I mean, go read Aristotle, go read Plato, but also where can they learn? Where can they see your track Truth?
They can find it everywhere. You can just look up my name on
actually, there
Spotify.
it is, right there. Yeah. Sorry.
And if you want to follow me on SoundCloud, I have a lot of music on there that's not just this album. I'll be posting to it pretty regularly this summer.
Cool.
So, yep.
All right, on SoundCloud, look up Arthur Welsh and look at the tune Truth. I'm actually curious why it was called Truth. All of the tracks on your album could be understood in a couple of different ways, or at least their titles could. So there was Homes, which could be like I own multiple homes, or it could be Yo Homes, throw me that, whatever. And then there's Up to You, which could be, hey, it's up to you to get the thing done, or or On to You. I'm sorry, I misquoted your own track. It's On to You. All of these titles could be interpreted in a couple of different ways. Was that intentional?
When we were like naming the songs, it was after the album had already been completed, and we actually just changed the names a lot. I wanted to, because the Truth was made in December, and then we finished the album when quarantine started. And this we is me and my friend Harry, and he goes by Alan, and he is a producer from Alaska. We played in a jazz band in high school and middle school through the Alaska Jazz Workshop. But I think all the titles can mean what you want them to. I saw Homes as being having many homes because I'm not in Alaska a lot anymore, but I still consider it my home. On to You, that's the feeling that I got. I felt like somebody was chasing me when I was like listening back to the song. And I think the rest of the titles are representative of whatever you need them to, because there aren't any lyrics in this album.
Yeah, the only lyrics are the titles.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the lens through which we might understand or maybe attach associations to the sounds that you've created. Well, you create a lot of other sounds. You said that you were in the Alaska Jazz Workshop. It's actually a great look forward at what else is coming this week. On Saturday, we have work from the Alaska Jazz Workshop by John Danberg, who's going to be presented. And before we get there, I would like to hear what one of his students has done with it since then. So could you play a couple tunes for us on the piano?
Yeah, as long as my audio is working. Here, can you hear the piano?
No, we got no piano right now. This
Nope.
is going to be a really interesting conversation. Why don't you do soprano, I'll sing bass. There are going to be a lot of interesting vocal jazz explorations around the themes of Homes, Up to You, Truth, Starry. Oh, we got some piano now, I think. Yeah,
Cool.
There we go. All right. Take it away and let us know what you're doing.
So I'm going to basically hit record on this, and you'll be able to see my MIDI data coming through, so you'll have a visual aspect. I'm just going to play a couple standards and take my time. Hopefully you can sit back and relax. Here we go. So those two songs were, the first one was Body and Soul, the second one was Bye Bye Blackbird. Uh, I was just messing around with them, having some fun. Might
Yeah, it
play
sounded like it.
might play
I
one
can see
more and
why
then we
you
can
would
talk
have
a little bit
put
more.
up the image of the computer readout of your notes just so that we knew how many you were playing. That was
I
that's
think
slick.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Is that something that you do for your own sake as well? Or is that something mostly
Uh,
just for us?
Mostly for you because I'm pretty involved in whatever I'm thinking about or doing. So uh, I think it's cool to watch the MIDI data and how it records stuff. Uh, so
Yeah, I've thought that sometimes MIDI data would be actually a better score than a score. Seems like the music notation system that we have might be a little outdated by comparison to MIDI. I don't know. What do you think?
I definitely have found that. I mean, I've done large arrangements for bands before, and instead of going into a music notation software, I'll play it into Ableton first, and it allows me to tweak everything in a way that I know, and then I can just export like the files, and put them into a notation software, and it's pretty much perfect.
Yeah. I don't have the experience that you have with MIDI or with piano. I've been a professional pianist for 3 years and certainly don't play like you do. Very much enjoyed the way that you opened up Body and Soul. Wow, that was a double meaning as well. I'm full of those tonight. Sweeping up the scales like that and implying the modality of that opening melodic gesture and the chords there. It was nice. What are
Thank
you
you.
thinking about when you make up new material based on tunes that have been played by 1,000 people 1,000 times each?
I'm always singing. I'm not the best vocalist, but I'm always singing. Melody and harmony are all mixed into what you hear on the radio or even in conversation. Uh, so I feel like improvisation is just a extension of how I'm hearing things in my head. It's just a matter of practice and how to facilitate your ideas, which Ableton is one way to do them, and then piano is another. And when you combine them, you're able to make albums and complete ideas.
Yeah, when we've talked about the titles to your tracks and then about the things you think about while you're improvising, I get the impression that music is fairly abstract for you. Is that true?
I think, I don't know. I can't say that it is or it isn't because I can read music, I can write music, but at the same time, I think what I was going to do next is just come up with something new that isn't written.
I think I need to clarify. I don't mean that music doesn't exist as a real sound for you, or that you wouldn't be able to read or make up something on the spot. Clearly, you can do all of those things. What I meant was that there have been debates throughout history about whether or not music has meaning. Like when I say the words music has meaning, you think something, and it's not necessarily just the sound of those words. It's also referential. It's also that the words attach to things in the real world. And even when you were talking about the words that you have used to title your tracks, it didn't seem like that was a necessary association that you wanted to give us. You said that we can think about whatever we want to think about. If the titles help us, great. If not, no worries. So does music for you attach to real things in the world?
I think at times, yes. There's definitely sounds with associations that I can't get rid of. But when I'm making my own music, like you said, like with titles, especially with jazz, if you don't know what song is being played, you're just experiencing the music, and there's no context for what you're going to feel. And I think that is a great thing, that it can be abstract or concrete. So I guess that sort of answers your question, but
What are you going to play for us next?
I'm just going to improvise something. I like doing this
You
right when I
evaded
wake
my
up.
question. You said you were going to improvise something, and I was going to try to force you into putting a name on it or associate it with something, but you avoided. Good job.
This is just
So
going
go
to
ahead and
be,
make something up for us.
yeah, being spontaneous and hearing melodies in my head. So hopefully you can follow along. Okay, that was just me having some fun.
Stop. Why'd you stop? I could live there for a while.
It's hard to
It felt
stop,
good.
honestly.
So again, I'm going to ask, when you're playing through that, are you thinking of other songs? Because there were hints of other songs through there. And are you thinking of a style that you enjoy? I mean, there was a lot of chromatic walk down, there was some 2-5-1, there was some planing, there was stuff in there that I've heard other composers do. What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about what I'm hearing in my head. I'm not thinking 2-5, this, that. I think once I have an idea, I just hear another idea on top of it. It's not a matter of me thinking, oh, I need to get to this key, because I started off in F and I ended in B, but I was in D for a while. Like it happens organically, and I think the listener most times will recognize that if you're taking leaps of faith. Like, mistakes are only mistakes in a certain context. So every time I sit down and play free, or however I'm feeling, I'm not saying, hey, I'm practicing this, because that's practicing. I'm purely playing and going with my heart in my ear.
So music has become a part of who you are, and you are being.
Yeah, it's. I think it's one and the same. I don't know if I was born with it, but it definitely feels like an appendage, or just like it's familiarity at this point. I couldn't go without it.
I see. It's been a pleasure to hear that appendage, even though it sounds kind of strange to say it like that.
Yes.
You know, we actually managed to bring up a track from your album while you were playing that last one. Is there anything you'd like to tell us about Truth beyond what you've already told us before we go ahead and cue it?
I will say, in reference to the last hour, the title track off of the album is actually 25 cents sharp. So when we first recorded it, I was like, this sounds good, but what can we do to make people be like, oh, it sounds right, but it's a little bit off? Because all the rest of the songs in the album are pitched just normally. So if you were to listen to it in context, you would hear that little shift up, and I think that's a truth in itself.
And by you don't mean me, because I did listen to it in context, and I did not hear that. Dolores might have been the you were talking about. She would probably pick up on those 25 cents. Go ahead and cue that if you would. Let's hear Truth. That was Truth by Arthur Welsh. Next up, I will tell you a few lies. Arthur, tell us a little bit about that. Goodness, I'm so full of dad jokes tonight. I'm sorry. Tell us a little bit about that album cover, if you would. How was that created?
So I'm actually part of a record label that's started by kids in Anchorage. It's called Rage City Records. You can find it at ragecityrecords.com. And it's actually a collective of artists. And one of the artists in that collaboration, basically, I got in contact with them, and then we worked out some album art. I like it because it's colorful. So
It is, yeah. Reminded both the director here and me of a flame. Was that intentional, or was just that part of the process?
I think it's one of those interpretive things that I think comes with listening to the album. If you think it reminds you of a flame, then the rest of the songs might have an effect on that as well.
You know, I think you're an Oberlin guy, is that right? Did you study at Oberlin?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a program called Meditative Jazz Studies, if I remember correctly, at the University of Michigan Composition Department. Well, it's a different department, but it's run by Ed Sareth, and it's in conjunction with the Composition Department. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not, no.
You might really enjoy that. If I had that, we would bring it up right now. But the idea is that I don't want to try to capsulize an entire department in a single idea, but the idea that you can find something deeper in your consciousness that expresses itself in ways that are understood by an audience intuitively is appealing to me, and it's not something that I've necessarily been able to do myself. That seems like something that you're shooting for. Do I read you right?
Yeah, I think that part of my musical journey has been finding my own sound and what that means, because I'm definitely not there yet. I'm still working every day to try and reach a higher level. But I think music is commercialized now, and it's sort of a commodity that's not seen as something you find within. You just hear it on the radio, you buy a record, you stream music. But I think my connection with the piano and my inner voice, it has opened me up to producing music that is more mainstream, but with a target audience of everyone, as opposed to just a certain genre or whatever category.
Well, you titled a track and an entire album Truth, so you have to bear with me on this next question. Music, as you've just said, is part of people's identities. It's also a commodity for some people. And so as an artist, we are contributing to other people's identities, either by creating things that they can own and associate themselves with and be part of a group that also associates themselves with that, or by creating something new that represents ourselves and allowing people to be part of that in whatever way they choose. To what degree do you think about identity when you think about sound? Or maybe a better way to say that is, are the sounds that come to you, as you put it, part of who you are? Or do you understand your identity to be at least partially influenced by the people that you know, maybe even the places that you've lived, and therefore the sounds that you produce are reflective of that?
I really do. I think my friends at school, because I go to conservatory. Oberlin is a conservatory and a college. I am not only studying jazz piano, I'm also studying mathematics, and there's a whole discussion of oh, why did you choose these two sort of unrelated majors? And I think the languages that reside within each of those fields are very similar, and they actually reflect, I think, humanity more than you would think. And identity, being part of our humanity, is I study it every day. It's not, all of my friends have influenced me. All the sounds that I make, it's part of my identity, but it's also me taking from theirs, not in a negative way, but just me interacting with them on a musical and just verbal. I think it's just relationships. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dealer's choice then. What can you play for us for one last tune that demonstrates what you just told us about how your musical identity is formed?
Okay, let's see.
All of it, all of who you are, and all of who your friends are in a single tune, I think is what I've just asked for.
I will do my best.
You don't have to do all that. Just something that you can pitch anyway, as something that represents who you are and also how that is influenced by other people.
I think the basis for all of this music is based in the blues. A lot of people don't do the research and the looking into the tradition of jazz and all the genres that came after jazz, because jazz is really formed in the blues. So I think I'll play some blues, and we'll see what happens. I'm just gonna play some language, hopefully. But yeah.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. Let's hear it.
Well, that was A blues. That was called C Jam Blues, but I played in F because
That
why
was
not?
fantastic.
Thank
Sea
you.
jam. I'm thinking of a jar of jam that's made from seawater for some reason. Now that was a great little ditty. I enjoyed it. You played it in F. Was there a reason you switched keys?
I was just feeling F. It's a pretty simple melody. It's just 5/1, so you can transpose it pretty easily. But I've just been playing a lot of F blues recently. But I mean, you could just as easily put in E flat.
Yeah.
So
It's actually a great tune to end on because it ties together this with Dolores Catharino. The blues is a genre that is grounded in notes that you don't really get on that piano. They just don't exist on there. There's a lot of flexibility and pitch in the blues.
Yeah, the
So
blue
speaking
note
of Speaking of all of the fantastic people who have performed tonight, we have a lot of other fantastic people coming up. Arthur, it's been great talking to you. Before I introduce everybody else, is there anything else you'd like to tell our audience about where they can find your music, or anything else about yourself, projects coming up?
You can follow me on Instagram at @ArthurWelsh_ or something like that. I will do my best to make my name available, but thank you for tuning in if you're listening. And thank you, Spenard Jazz Fest. Yeah.
Thank you, Arthur. It's been a pleasure to speak with you and hear your music. I've really enjoyed it.